Peace, family. Vicki Dillard here for African Diaspora News Channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to share the broadcast. And one of the main reasons you want to share the broadcast, beloved, and download our app, which the information should be below, is because we are a very powerful and important contribution to the media. I say this all the time because it's true. Media is a part of warfare, and it's very important that you are supporting people that are on your team. Watch this. Today's story is a big example of why. Some of you all have seen my back-to-back coverage on the United States government, the Congress holding hearings attacking South Africa. Some of you have seen my coverage where I showed a clip of the foreign minister of South Africa, Miss Naledi Pandor, talking about how she's been called out of her name for a number of reasons. This beautiful Black woman, on behalf of her nation, has been attacked because she is a very powerful and moral voice throughout the planet. And she is a stalwart, no matter what you may or may not say about it, if you're within that region. She is a powerful force against oppressive forces, global forces that's running the world. So some of you all have to understand that when it's easy to get into maybe some of the smaller things or individual, just local things that you might be upset with her about, or her leader, President Ramaphosa and others, and even some of their particular political parties. But it's very important that we don't lose sight of the larger context and figure out ways that we can effectively have each other's back and keep our focus on the geopolitical adversary. Did you hear what I said right there? Why am I saying that? This report I'm reading from, I'm going to read from a couple. This particular headline says, Iran, South Africa signed an agreement in Pretoria ahead of the BRICS summit. This was just a couple of months ago, family. I mentioned this earlier in one of my other broadcasts, but it bears repeating in this particular broadcast today. Iran and South Africa signed a cooperation agreement in Pretoria Thursday during Iranian Foreign Minister Hussein Amir Abdullahian's visit to his South African counterpart, Naledi Pandor, as the Islamic Republic pitches its membership in the BRICS group of developing economies. Of course, we know that Iran was one of 6 countries that was added to BRICS. Yes, you've seen our coverage here. If not, just pull it up right here on our network. Listen, in this piece that I'm scrolling down, it talks about how they broached the topics of the Ukraine war, civil unrest in Sudan, as well as Yemen, Palestine, the Iranian foreign minister said. Now, this is what mainstream media won't tell you, is that Naledi Pandor, the foreign minister of South Africa, she had these discussions about the war that was going on in Sudan before some of the uprisings we're seeing right now in the Middle East. Are y'all hearing me? These were discussions that were being had. And also they signed an official, basically a bilateral agreement, right? This piece also discusses the fact that Iran has been accused of supplying Russia with Shahed drones to use in its war against Ukraine. At the meeting, Pandor and Amir Abdullahian, refuted these allegations, claiming that the Ukraine has not produced proof of Iran's involvement during a meeting between Iranian and Ukrainian military delegations in Muscat. I just wanted to say that. It also says that the two also discussed the security and political situation in Afghanistan, including the oppression of women in the country and the significant influx of Afghan refugees into Iran, the foreign minister reported. It also talked about how they attributed the current challenges of drug trafficking, security issues, and refugees to the 2 decades of U.S. occupation in Afghanistan. You all have to understand that when Black country such as South Africa began to take a global position and discussing solutions and problems of the planet, this is a problem for the powers that shouldn't be, because they're used to controlling and manipulating the planet. And it makes them even more nervous when they start to meet, because that means that they will not be fooled by just mere print reports. They're hearing directly from high-level governmental officials and their governmental counterparts from that nation. And Lord knows it makes them nervous when they start doing business agreements, bilateral agreements economic bilateral agreements as well. Well, South Africa's going to need our prayers after this one. And when I say prayers, if you know anything about me, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. When I'm talking about prayers, beloved, prayers is not just getting on your knees, begging an invisible force to do something. I teach my students that prayer is preparation. I teach my students that prayer, you can become a prayer. I said something powerful, right? Did you hear? I got to hit the gavel on that one. I said, I teach my students that you can become a prayer. Don't get what I mean twisted. I'm trying to tell you that the divine crystallizes and manifests in you and through you. I think there's a sacred text that said, behold, I come in the volume of a book. Behold, I come in the volume of a book is written of me. I've taken on human form and incarnated. There are some things that upset you. Sometimes you got to take an account of some of the things that upset you, because that might be a clue to your purpose. Some things that you love might be a clue to your purpose. Why do I say some things that upset you might be a clue to your purpose? Because sometimes if you see a problem, you might be the solution that the divine has sent forth in the earth for such a time as this. Watch this. That's what I mean when I say they're going to need our prayers. That means that they're going to need your active support and our active faith in them to know what time it is on the global stage. Watch this other headline. This other headlines from Haaretz News. This opinion piece says, and I quote, South Africa's government is an unapologetic, shameless proxy for Hamas and Iran. Without us getting into details about all the other stuff that's going on around the world, listen to a part of their description concerning the South African government. They say a pornographic, sycophantic romance between government ministers, a warm embrace for Iran. That's a part of the description. This is how they're labeling South Africa. So I hope this is making sense as to why you are seeing these wild and outrageous and sudden, strong attacks, accusations against South Africa. How many of you all remember some months ago, I talked about how the ambassador to South Africa from the United States, Mr. Briggity, libelously, falsely accused South Africa of supplying arms to Russia. And I also discussed some months later, recently, the investigation of that lie was concluded and found that there was absolutely no evidence of such. I have shown you footage of the U.S. Congress berating South Africa and threatening some of the economic benefits and throwing in her face her contributions to AIDS relief and all of this other stuff with the GOA that they claim they're doing for South Africa. Lady Pandor, the foreign minister for South Africa, has told us that she has been called out of her name all kinds of names. There are too many more attacks, but are you getting the picture? South Africa is a threat to them, but also geopolitically, they're very strategic because they have decent relationships with Russia. They have relationships with the United States. They have entered into bilateral agreements with Iran. And even some of you may say, well, they're not a top economic power, Vicki. You may say they got all these problems in South Africa. Let me tell you something. It ain't just that. In my opinion, it's also not only because of the ANC, which some have definitely talked about how they've changed a lot and they're not as quote unquote radical as some of them want them to be. But how many of you all know that our brother Julius Malema and his part of the EFF ain't nothing to play with either? So you best believe that even though they're attacking this quote unquote South African government, you all know that they are afraid of some of the other fiery and powerful, potent individuals in that country as well. And even though they may see some of the South African factions fighting, you better pay attention, family. Don't get blindsided by the powerful people that you have that you can be partnering with. You all have a labor union that could do great wonders for the country as well. They're going to need our prayers. And you best believe that Vicki at Vicki Planet, with my mystery school, I'm going to be giving my prayers. That means my spiritual power and support. Remember, I just said when I'm talking about prayer, I'm talking about prayer. It's preparation, baby. That means it's acting a certain way and that you can actually become a prayer. And I hope you all understand that all the stuff that's happening in the world, as difficult as it is, as heart-wrenching as it is proof that you were born to do something about it. It's proof that it is our time and we were born for such a time as this. My name is Vicki Dillard. Thank you so much for tuning into the Vicki Show right here on African Diaspora News Channel. Be sure to share this broadcast. Check out my website at VickiPlanet.com. That's VICKI Planet.com. Look at my products and services. I can't wait to see you again.